Winter, winter, winter. Yeah, I guess it must come at least once a year. It's been cold, baby, but then again, we get some warm days. Welcome to another edition of When Black Men Talk. Myself, Mark Elliott, Mr. DeMaurice, and Mr. Charles. We get together weekly for a conversation, and who knows where the conversation may lead itself. It can go anywhere for this time. I'm speaking. We should record in the mornings. We're trying something a little different now. We're going back to our roots, actually kind of recording in the evening. And Sunday nights have a different feel to it. It brings on a different feel, almost a sense of relaxation, I can kind of say. Let me check and see how these gentlemen are feeling about it. Mr. Charles, we're back to kind of doing this on a Sunday night, man. I remember when we first started this, it was kind of late Sunday night, but coming back to a Sunday night vibe, how's it feeling to you?
It's cool. I mean, for me, it ain't really no breaks, bro. Sorry, something doing. So it don't matter what time you say, morning, noon, or afternoon. I got shit to do. But I understand. For most, it's very relaxing. I can have a beverage, a little Tom Collins if I chose to, and I feel a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah, when the last time I heard that name, Tom Collins. Man, I want to. We're going to talk about our temples a little bit. So before we kind of roll to that, I want to invite you or welcome you to someone that basically told diabetes to get the f up out of here, Mr. D. Maurice. Man, how's it feel to be doing this on a Sunday night, my boss?
Um, I don't know. A lot more relaxed. My voice is not as deep as usually in the mornings, but it's cool. I forgot that we used to do this in the evenings. To be honest with you.
Uh, I forgot your voice is deep in the mornings, to be honest with you. But anyway,
Mhm.
as I was saying, man, yeah, we talked about it a little while ago, man. You were dealing with diabetes. You handled it well, and I want to, kind of focus on a temple for a little bit because thinking about that, caring for our temple as we start to age, it brings on different requirements. Some things that we might ate when we were younger, we can't, kind of indulge in too much, or maybe not indulge in at all. And basically, we really need to, if we're not doing, start to check up on our temple much more frequently. And when I say check up, basically, going to the doctors. And for some of us, still, that is really a big ball of hesitation, reluctancy. We just don't believe in it for whatever reason. And I shouldn't say what reason. We have some reasons from our past and different things. And some of us don't want to know anything until we have to know it. So I get that. But I want to start this by going with what I read recently about Dwayne Wade, the ex champion, recently disclosed that he lost 40% of his right kidney removed due to cancer. Now, he's 43 years old. He stopped playing basketball several years ago. And after he basically stopped playing basketball, he just stopped going to the doctor. When he was playing, they had the physicals and things were going on. He was getting checked out. So after retiring, he basically just I guess made a decision, consciously or subconsciously, not to go get physicals. But he started experiencing some discomfort, and he noticed that his urination was starting to be slower and slower. So he went to the doctor, and they did a body scan. They basically came across a tumor on his kidney, which happened to be cancerous, and they had to remove part of his kidney. And you think about that for a second. He waited, in a sense, until something was basically making him feel a certain way. And I know sometimes we're in our 30s, we're lucky to live through our 30s and our 40s. Sometimes we kind of have a feeling as men, sometimes a little bit of indestructibility. So I want to come back to you with this one, Mr. DeMaurice, because I think sometimes we should help folks care for the temples because some folks need a little nudge, you might need a little push, a little bit of support. So when I think about it that way, how can we help others, start to step up maybe and say, take that step to start caring for the temples a little bit more?
I think we need to do a better job at looking out for each other. I was in North Carolina over the holidays, and I was with my pop, and I noticed something on his body that I didn't like. And my father he's that type. He's old school. He'll deal with whatever, just like my mama. To just deal with whatever. As long as it don't hurt much or at all, they're not going to really pay attention to it. But when I noticed it, I said, what is that? And he was like, oh, I've had that for a few months and, it doesn't hurt or anything. And I said, you know what? I want you to do me a favor. I want you to get that checked out. I said, because that shouldn't look like that. And he did. Now, years ago, it would have been a fight. It would have been a fight. I ain't doing
Hmm.
nothing. You go on. But then I told one of my sisters is a head nurse for a military hospital, or one of the directors of a military hospital. And I told her, I said, when you go and check on him, follow up on it. I said, because I told him that I wanted him to go get it checked out. He did. And he has a follow up appointment. And it was exactly what I thought it might be. And it was all about letting him know that, hey, I'm not comfortable with this. It's okay. It doesn't mean you're less than, because I know with men, and we feel like if we can't take pain or we can't take some adversity, we're less than. But I did it out of, hey, I love you. I care about you. This doesn't look right. I want you to be healthy. I want you to be good. So let's check it out just to make sure it's not something that, is going to be detrimental down the road. So years before, it would have been a fight on our hands. But now I think, we all realize that, anything that the body's kind of manifesting and telling us that we need to pay more attention to, because with this ordeal that I've going through it, it made me. I thought I was paying attention to my body and the signals it was giving me, but I wasn't really clearly, because I would deal with pain. I'm like, okay, that'll be here for a little while. I'll just get rid of it, or it'll just go away. But now it's more so listening to my body, being careful about what I eat, what I put in my body, what's going to help it heal, and what's going to be a deterrent to that. So I think we need to all kind of take care of ourselves, take care of each other. Talk to each other about these things, because when I found out I got my diagnosis, I found out tons of friends and family had the same thing, but I never knew, because we never talk about it, and it seems like it could be a taboo. I think we think that once we diagnose ourselves or get a diagnosis, we tell people that they have shied away, and I've had some people who shied away from me afterwards, and that just gives me an idea that they weren't really as close or really didn't care about me in the get go. So, but we got to get rid of the stigmas, and we got to go see doctors that are reputable, doctors that are going to that we can trust, because it's a big mistrust that we have with the medical profession in the Black community. So we need to, if we find a good doctor, share with other people. Like, this is a good doctor. This is one we can trust, so that we can get past all these stigmas and these kind of barriers that keep us away from being healthier.
Yeah, you cover a lot of ground out there, man. You really did, and a lot of good stuff. And I like so many things that you said. But the thing I'm gonna zero in, two things I'm gonna zero in on is that if you didn't say it this way, it was done this way. When you said to your pops, go get that checked out, you said it out of love and concern and care, man. And I think a lot of times for us as men, we have a hard time speaking to other men out of love and just care and concern. We're reluctant to do so. We're afraid how it's going to come off, how it may be perceived, and we fight not to do that. And I think that's one of the biggest things we can do is to basically start to really employ ourselves to do it with love and care and let them know it's where it's coming from. In a sense, not a sense of trying to tell you what to do or how to do it, but really, man, out of love and care and concern, I want to see you do, take better care or help you if there's something going on. The second thing, man, that I want to zero in on that you said about the doctors, man, find a doctor, because a lot of times we get with certain doctors, and to me, if your doctor is not up on this game, meaning they're not basically checking certain things they should be checking for you, they're not really showing a concern, just don't give your insurance or your money to them that freely. If they're not earning it, they're really not earning, by the care that they're providing, find someone else. Find a doctor that's really going to lock into you and really roll with you for a period of time and when it's necessary. I was fortunate years ago. I had a primary physician, and I almost came by him by accident. But him and I developed this rapport to where it was like, you would have thought we went out to lunch together, we did whatever. And it wasn't often that I might have needed something, but if I called the office and I said I want XYZ, if he didn't come to the home very shortly, he would say to the receptionist or the person, tell him I'll call him back, blah, blah, blah. And Mark, what's going on? Blah, 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 blah. And if I didn't need to come in, he took care of it. And most of the time, that's how it kind of went. But that's what I'm talking about. Develop a rapport with your doctor. Just don't let them be when you basically things get all out of whack. You go in and they just look at you for 5-10 minutes. And no, when you're in there, when you're getting your physical, develop rapport, ask questions, let them know you're serious about your health. And if they're not going to be serious about it, you're going to take your money and walk out the building. Make them be serious about it. Just don't go in and just act like it's all nonchalant. No, make them understand. I'm serious about this. I'm really concerned, and I need what you understand, what you can do for me to base. If I'm paying you, to be just as much as serious as I am. So, Mr. Charles, this is it may sound like a simple question, man, but it goes back to what was said a long time ago. We should be our brother's keepers. So if we're going to think that way, and put it in songs and put it in movies and act like it, how can we basically do things to start to help others care for their temple?
Yeah, for me, I think it's I always think about a subtle approach, right? So you have people that some, as Dee Marie said, they don't want to admit or deal with something or talk about it. So I think it's a subtle approach. And if you sometimes just talk and ask questions, like even with a standing question of how are you doing, and some people will open up right then and there. They'll tell you, kind of give you a little tidbit. But I think part of it too is um, most things that happen to people, you don't have to be an expert about it, but most of us have a little bit of knowledge or somebody else that dealt with something that somebody else did. And you might say, hey, by the way, listen to what they say, and then go into it a little bit if they're interested. And then two, I want to piggyback what you said about the doctors. Like for instance, I had surgery about 10 years ago, two surgeries in 9 months. And once I learned about the surgeries, learned about how it affected my body, other people that came behind me with similar surgeries or whatever, I was able to tell them certain things that I look for in the doctor, what the doctor should be looking out for you, what you should be aware of. So even if you can't come to my doctor because of the region, we live in different regions, you can at least still find somebody that has that knowledge in that realm of what you need in order to move forward. Because as we get older, the body is tricky, man. It's tricky. I mean, like you mentioned about Dwayne Wade, what's really bizarre to me is this dude was a world class athlete and probably felt like, you know what, I'm good. I was great then, I'm great now, but the body don't care when it comes to your body. When you get older, things change, and if you just never know when something could just go crazy on
Yeah. When I look at someone such as Dwayne Wade, and when it's kind of put to the forefront, I'm glad he allowed this to come out. You look at him, like you said, he was an athlete. You just believe that because of that, the health is prime. I mean, it's so primal. It's just there. Everything is so correct to where that you would never imagine. And he might have had that mindset for himself, but when you really kind of pull the curtains back and realize he's 43 years old, and you think to yourself, okay, 43, wow, that's not really old in terms of living. And cancer itself has no marker of what age, who you are, what you are, how much you make, what you've done, and it doesn't. And to me, that's an eye opener. It's always an eye opener, not only because he's Dwayne Wade, but when I hear it affects anyone, it's an eye opener to how fragile our temples are, that how we basically acquire a lot of different things that's out there. And yes, we're all going to perish from something. So true. Some people will say to me to be lazy. They say, "Well, I'm gonna die from something anyway." Okay, that's the role you want to take. But why not, when you can, be the best that you can with the abilities that you have to be the best that you can? So that's kind of always been my approach, my thought process. And basically, if I'm speaking to someone, whatever the case may be, I'm never going to push anyone to do something they want to do. but I will kind of nudge a little bit about, and ask some certain questions. I think about, personally, my father, had prostate cancer. He didn't die from it, but I knew he had it, and I knew how it basically runs with black males. So my two other brothers, I started getting PSAs done immediately after he passed. But my two older brothers, I would say to them, Tom, you guys are gonna, PSA, nah, nah, nah. They know, yeah, I'm gonna get one. The years keep going by and by and by, and part of my mind, I'm thinking, we know this is it's possibly in our gene, our DNA. We know what, daddy had it. I give it information how it's basically, higher in our community as far as black men. I'm just thinking, what is really holding you back? And if I would ask, they well, no, I'm gonna get it done. They wouldn't even deal with the question. So it's amazing to me sometimes that, little small things we can do to be preventive and kind of get ahead of the curve, we shy away from. You shy away from, but then we bunked over and things are all wrong. Now you want your prayer warriors. And I have nothing against prayer warriors, but why not do some things before you need your prayer warriors? Gentlemen, I want to touch on this, man, because I was thinking about this morning, and it's two things in life that we can't really get enough of. It seems that way. One, basically, for the most part, both of them we really have no control, but we fight to kind of work within the control and try to gain and utilize them best to our abilities. And those two things are, Mr. Charles, is time and money. We wake up basically paying attention to time, how much time we got to do throughout the course of the day and get some things in, squeeze it into a period of time. But most of the time, as men, when you think about it, we wake up to pursue money. Some form of fashion, we're doing something to pursue and to acquire money. So if I would ask the question to you, sir, at this point in life, because this question here can kind of resonate differently based on your age, but where you are now, and you can talk about where you may have been in the past, if you were given an opportunity to choose one and forsake the other one, which one would it be, time or money?
I think it really depends on the age. Of course, when I was younger, it was about the money. I mean, because of course you go to school or whatever you decide to do, whatever your profession was or is, then you want to be secure. See, and we think money brings security, which means if you ever want to have a family, you gotta have money. You gotta have a lot of other things. So I would say money early on. Time I didn't worry about it because I always felt like I could move pretty quick. Oftentimes I thought that I'm young enough, I'm gonna be here for a while, so I just need to get going. And once I accomplish this, then I'll be okay. But as I got older, don't get me wrong, I enjoy a nice check or a couple of dollars. I enjoy a nice. One day, it would be nice to be able to not have to worry about anything from a wealthy standpoint. But it's not as important as time. And as I get older, I realize that time is so vital because now time goes quick as I'm older. But I thought I had time to do something. I turn around 2 hours, 3 hours are gone. Before it was like, man, this is taking forever. So you turn around now, it's February. And if I do not schedule or pay attention enough or have my ducks in a row as to what I want to accomplish, it can just pass you by, and that's what time shows you. So I think now time is the most important thing. I I value it every day. I value it every day. It's like, okay, here's another opportunity. So we don't know about tomorrow. So if you want something to get something done, you might want to try to pursue that and get on that today.
Yeah, man. Two strong commodities, Mr. DeMaurice, man. They basically control us to an extent throughout the course of the day for most men. We're up against the time, but yet we're trying to get the money. We're up against the time, we're trying to get the money. Choose one, Mr. DeMaurice. You could talk about where you were at different points in life, but if you had to choose one right now, man, which one would you go with?
I got to go with time right now. But yeah, when you're younger, you think you have all the time in the world. You don't think about time. You think about, you know, getting this money and getting secure, getting the things you want and need and desire. So, at different stages, it kind of changes over because I was thinking about this the other day that anytime that I find myself in a bind or needing more cash, um, at this part of the journey, I don't even worry about it. I'm like, okay, that's gonna come. That's gonna come. I put my time in, whatever. I ain't worrying about the bills. I ain't worrying about all this stuff. I'm good. And I don't know if I would have been able to do that if I was married and had a family surrounding me. But as by myself, it's like, okay, it'll get paid. Or the creator's not going to leave me in limbo or stranded. Anything that I need it's not my time, it's the creator's time. And so it makes it less more money for me is like less more important and time to do the things and be at places and the time to do the things that I like to do and like to enjoy. So yeah, at this stage of the game, it's more I have to choose time.
Yeah, I'm with you both two gentlemen. Is basically choosing time because I agree with you, Mr. DeMaurice, on the scope where and I've always kind of been this way with the money in a sense. I'm not going to worry about it if if it happens, it gets paid, it gets paid. It doesn't. I mean, I'll catch up later in a sense. But time, yeah, man, because you want to get some things done, and then you realize sometimes you're trying to get it done, and you might get pushed back on something. And you realize, man, I'm in my mind, I had set a time frame. I wanted to accomplish this, and it's not happening. But then you realize it doesn't happen based on your time. So you fall into that. But so I would definitely say time when I was younger. As Mr. Charles said, I didn't really kind of think about time too much. Just figure there's plenty, and you roll and you try to do as much as you can. But I figure that time will always kind of be there. But here again, when you start to age, you realize almost to an extent that time speeds up on you. Now you look at the clock, it goes, 60 seconds and it rolls. But I swear it seems like, as I age, time start, it wasn't 1 second at a time. It was like maybe four or five, then it starts to skip a little bit and go a little faster. And time definitely
Right.
moves a little quicker. Yeah.
I said
I
that to
want to,
my dad real quick, and he,
no,
he
go
gave
on,
me a
man, please.
perspective I'll never forget. Um, I said, man, it seems like time is moving so fast. He's like, no, time is moving the way it's supposed to move. You just slowing down. And I'm like, damn. Like, damn, okay, yeah, that is true. Time has changed. You have.
Yeah, that's very well could be possible. With sticking with that mindset though, because I thought this to myself too a day ago, man, and I know for me, it's been one of my most quiet fears, Mr. DeMaurice. When I say this, a part of the reason why we do some of the things that we do or have done over the years, because for me, the fight was, I mean, I always wanted to live well. But there was always a fear in the back of my mind that if I don't do X, Y, Z or enough of X, Y, Z, I may not be able to live with a shelter over my head, period. And what I'm basically saying here, I think for a lot of us as men, one of our quiet but most prominent fear is being broke.
Mm.
It's just being broke, man. Your thoughts behind that?
It's a concern, but that's why, now I talked to a buddy of mine from Pontiac, Michigan, and he's retiring next Friday. And he set himself up in the last few years. I mean, we've talked about it for years, but he was like, I'm finally getting to that point where he's like, man, my pension and everything I'm getting in is better than what I was doing going out there, busting my behind. So I think for a lot of us, I know for me, it's like, okay, how do I put myself in a position where that I don't have to be broke, or I don't have to rely on assistance, or and one of the things I know in my heart, I always told my pop that I don't want you to want for anything. So my pop, I was talking to him yesterday. It was his birthday yesterday, and I was like, some of the characteristics you have has really kind of helped you live a long life. He's in his 80s now, and I like, you still work a few hours a day. He said you don't have to, but you do. He won't retire. He won't sit down. Matter of fact, when I wished him a happy birthday, he was out in the yard doing yard work. And so um, one of the things I always did, and I know that my sisters have joined in, is making sure that we have access to his bank account and that we're always putting stuff in there so he doesn't have to worry about anything. And I would hope that, one day that's done to me. I'm not looking at it, but I'm preparing myself that I got to do it on my own. But hopefully, the when kids get older, they realize that, hey, I need to help out the old man, or I need to help out the old lady, and making sure that she's good and not relying on these different government systems to really kind of take care of everything. So I think that comes with family support, friends, people that you can rely on. I see now in Chicago, there are older people who sometimes don't want to live in the home, so they get together and they take care of each other. So hopefully, um, I'm preparing myself for that with the jobs that I work, the money that I put away, working in those different jobs, the different the 401k ones and all that other stuff, to make sure that you can, live a decent life beyond retirement, but also looking for those supports, those people who are going to support you and help you along the way. And I'm fortunate to be able to. I don't even ask my dad what he needs anymore. I just put it in his account, or I'll just send him stuff to make sure. And I made that promise to him. So I don't want you wanting for anything. I don't want you to be, hey, I need this. I don't even want you to ask. When you need to get something, it's there. And so that's, I think, as black men, we need to be able to establish relationships like that, not even with family, but with friends and supporters, and maybe with, you know, external members of the family, to make sure that everybody is good, to mend relationships, to make sure that our people are good. Because one of the saddest things, and I'll end on this note, is when somebody in your family dies, and nobody wants to kind of give money or help out, or even help out with the funeral costs or anything like that, because of broken relationships, or how that person felt about that particular person that passed. And going to a few funerals um, in the last few weeks, good people have passed away, and you see all this outpouring of love and support. We need to really kind of hone in on that, on our people, finding our people, and making sure that they're going to look out for us in those times where we can't do things for ourselves.
Yeah, that would be nice. I will say that would be nice. I don't count on the support, bro. I mean, it's cool if it comes, and I hear that, and I think that's great. But yeah, I wouldn't. I wouldn't count on it. Be nice though. I mean, and I like the idea, and I think that as people in general, yeah, we should be able to support each other, especially at those times. Um, I know you said earlier when people found out about your diabetes, they ran. I mean, I don't totally understand that, but yeah, to me, I'm always one. If things come, they're a gift. I don't expect it, so I planned for it not to be there. But Mr. Charles, I look at the possibility, the mentality of sometimes the driving force of some things we have done just to avoid from not having, man, not being broke, not experiencing that. What comes with that? Because when you are broke, for the most part, you got things to do, and you feel a sense of helplessness. Now you can't really achieve some of the things that you may want to achieve, and it could be basic things. So I want to get your reaction to it, sir.
Yeah, I think for a lot of times, particularly as men, nobody wants to be broke because you feel helpless. You don't want to ask anybody for anything, and you'll go out your way to try to uh, walk away from that because it's humbling, it's tough, and you don't want to seem like you are like you're helpless. You don't want to seem that way. So therefore, your pride may stand in the way, and you say, "Well, I'll wait." And because I'm like that. It's like I'll wait till the last minute. I mean, right now, I always think there's a way that's gonna happen. There's always something I'm gonna find a way to improve, and I've had that happen to me in the past. It's always find a way to improve. So whatever I'm facing financially is gonna be better. I just gotta wait, 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 wait. Some people they'll jump right away. They know somebody can help them. They'll ask them. You might see me to the last. I might be outside. They be like, "What you doing? What happened?" I'm like, "Nothing. I'm just waiting." So I mean, that's pride, and I get that. But I also think too, though, that it's important to try to, as you said, help others when you can, particularly if you can just be there in a small manner. But I think the other part of the brokenness is, uh, or avoiding being broke. As I get older, we talked about having different resources or having different skill sets. And one thing I've tried to do with myself is I was honest with myself and I said, well, how can you make money? And I wrote down a list and I'm very aware of how much money, well, how I can make money. And it may not always be in my profession, it may not always be in my particular field, as far as degree or whatever. But I just thought about skill sets I have, like communications, marketing, customer service, all kinds of stuff like that too. And I wrote down some things, and once I started thinking about it, I was like, man, I can do this, I can do that. So there's different, I guess, sources of income. Because they say a millionaire on average has 7 sources of income. I'm not saying you got to think like a millionaire, but if you have the more resources you have, or the more things you think about that you can do, even if it's simple things, you'd be surprised how people, what groups or companies or even part-time companies are paying for if you have a skill set. So I think about that and then I go, okay, now here's what I want to do. I have my main thing that I like to do or I want to do, so I make real money. Here's some other things, and now I just keep doing that and taking on different projects from time to time. But also too, I'm cognizant of saving money. So if I have a lot more than what I had before, I put money away because it's like, hey, you don't have to go out and buy everything. What's wrong with having a little cash in your pocket just in case you need
Yeah. I think I love this conversation, gentlemen. I really do. It's One Black Men Talk. Myself, Mark Elliott, Mr. Maurice, Mr. Charles, and it's what we make of. We get together and have conversations. Three gentlemen that's not afraid to be vulnerable, basically speak open, don't shy away from things that need to be said, and bring different perspectives. Sometimes our perspectives are the same, sometimes they're different. But I value the fact that we're open enough to speak on it. And I want to kind of move in this direction because, to me, sometimes a nature of a man is to try to avoid emotional attacks and being vulnerable. And, vulnerable is a feeling that it's not necessarily comfortable. It's an uneasiness. It's like, yeah, and then you just can't, find yourself doing it just with anyone, or you don't want to visit there if don't have to. You want to take a detour, you want to go around it, and that's kind of like the nature of a man, Mr. Charles. When I think about it, and there's two types of vulnerability. They have to be tend to be communicative and social. And if I look at that, I want to really kind of focus more on the communicative because I think that's where we avoid being vulnerable when it comes down to communication and just speaking and opening up and sharing. We basically will kind of cut things short, drop things, and that's where I go back earlier. I was talking about just helping people with their tempo. It kind of applies to that, but why is it that? And this is a simple question for the most part. But why is that uneasiness for some of us is hard to work around it and just kind of bull right through it and deal with?
Yeah, I think it depends on because most people feel that they're vulnerable, they're accessible to being hurt, and I think for a lot of people they may be dealing with that, whatever that issue may be, or it might be a trauma, whatever something that you had to overcome, whatever you're dealing with. I think some people still think about that, or it's a sore spot or something about that that maybe they may have not even healed from, if that's possible, right? And to be vulnerable, it opens the door for people to comment, to suggest or say some things, and they may be saying some things to that person and say something in a trying to say it in a helpful, respectful way, but they may not understand that what they said might hurt that person because they're not willing to deal with it. They never have, right? So I think that's why people, for the most part, are not don't want to be vulnerable. I would say for myself though, I don't really have a problem being vulnerable. I think Dima Reed said it earlier. I just pick and choose who I'm vulnerable with, and it's just real. And I think that's just the independent nature that I've developed as a person, and having to do that early on in my life. So I can be vulnerable with you, but I really don't expect. I think sometimes when you're vulnerable, we look at people like they're gonna help a situation or give a suggestion. And for me, I'm like, I've been doing this by myself for a long time. I really don't need some suggestions or some help. I'll say it and deal with it, but I'm not really worried about needing some help with that because I've been so independent so long. Not saying people can't help you, but I think we all deal with certain things as far as being vulnerable different ways. So whatever I say, somebody comes back and ask a question, or even if they might criticize because they don't understand, I'm not gonna get in my feelings because clearly they don't know what I've been through, and I'm strong enough to deal with that and even have a conversation because I know me.
Yeah. Mr. DeMaurice, it's interesting because vulnerability to me hinges on a level of trust. It really does. I heard Mr. Charles says this. Certain people he choose to be vulnerable with, and certain people he choose not to. And I'm sure those people that he chooses to be vulnerable with, you trust them. So it's a big level of trust there that goes along with it. But even with that, for some, it's hard to be communicative and just be vulnerable. And that's what I kind of want to kind of find out what's behind that. So if you have some thoughts to what could be behind that right there, why some can't just move into it and just like get comfortable with it.
It's a lack of trust of what that person will do in that moment of vulnerability and what you disclose. So it does have to do with, do I trust this person that I'm going to give my innermost feelings and emotions to, and that they're going to keep that safe, or they're going to keep that guarded, or they're not going to share that with anybody else. And so it does have, I think, everything to do with the relationship you have with the person that you feel that you can be vulnerable to. So some of us have been vulnerable. I'm speaking of men who have been vulnerable to the wrong person, and that person will use um, that information, or that moment that you chose them, against you, out of spite, out of retaliation or whatever. And I know for men, I know when we get rejected, I mean, from early dating, when you get rejected from that girl, you start to grow thick skin, and the more rejections you get, the thicker your skin gets, and you know that I'm gonna talk to 10 girls today. I know one or two of them gonna give in, so I'm gonna just play the numbers. So, but we get that thick skin where we feel like, and I know I felt that way, where when you got your heart broken again, it's like, man, I am never gonna feel this way ever again. So whatever I gave in this one, the second one that came along, you ain't getting it. You ain't getting none of this unless you could prove to me without a shadow of a doubt that you're going to hold my secrets and my vulnerable state, to yourself. So it's very hard for us to do that, because I think as men we get betrayed, we get rejected so much that it's hard to even be vulnerable with each other, let alone a significant other or somebody who cares about you. We get that thick skin, and we realize that this is how the world operates, so I have to conform to it. And sometimes that takes away that ability to do the vulnerable thing.
Yeah. It's interesting because when I'm listening to you talking, I'm thinking this from a man's perspective. After you deal with the rejection, after you deal with the hurt of past hurt, that's that nature. Does that really close the door on really being in an earnest, loving relationship, Mr. Demaris?
I think it can. I think it can with some people, because you learn early on, that hurts. When you get hurt, that really hurts, and you don't want to feel. People don't want to feel hurt. That's human behavior. You don't want to be hurt. You don't want to let people get close enough so they can hurt you. And I think it can for some people if they don't get with their people, or somebody who can really kind of say, hey, that's not the norm. That was just a bad person who did that to you. I think it could get to a point where you go, hey, I don't trust nobody. I don't trust anybody, and I'm not giving anybody anything, any part of me, because I know that down the road, it can come back and it can bite me. So I think some people do hold that to their chest and go, never again.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think those people that do that should tell the person that they get involved with that I can't open up and be that way. Because what I really believe what happens, Mr. Charles, is when that happens, they act on it. And the other person is expecting them to basically reciprocate what they're giving. And if you choose to basically, from your past hurts and disappointments to kind of not give that, I think that should be set up front instead of acting it out quietly and just rolling through it. But that's the thing I'm feeling, Mr. Charles, because it's like if you're really, carrying on and you've been vulnerable, and to me, I know we don't want to get hurt, but at the end of the day, get hurt's a part of life. It really is, man. You cannot live a life, without getting hurt in some form, fashion, or degree. It's just a part of life. Rejection, all those things. None of us going to be, prevented and not be scaled by it or touched by it to some degree. I think how you come back from it, how you maneuver from it, how you progress from it is the key. Not that it happens, but for those that kind of let it linger on and continue to carry it, can they really open up and can they really experience true love?
I think they can. I think it would take time, and they have to be comfortable with where they're at. And I think a lot of that has to do with where they at, where they are at as a person. Because let's say, for instance, you got hurt by that last relationship or that woman or whatever, and then sometimes when we get hurt because people say certain things about us or they talk about our shortcomings, if you take that really to heart, people start second guessing who they are as people and how strong they are, or they might be considered themselves weak because somebody pointed something out. So therefore, they kind of go, "Okay, I'm not doing that anymore. I don't want to be involved with that anymore." And granted, I think it's important to try to come back from it as quick as possible, but it's easier said than done. And I think for myself, we all have to be honest. Some people are stronger than others when it comes to emotions and stuff like that. I mean, it'd be nice to say, "Oh, you just need to hurry up, and go get over it or deal with it," but everybody's not like that. But I think though overall, that's what the importance I'll say from my experience is understanding yourself and who you are and how strong you are and what you represent and what you have inside of you. And the one thing that I'm at this point now that I wish I would have done earlier in my life is, as a man, be okay being me, because you it's always that thing where the woman or whoever you're with, they want you to be this and be that, or they're looking for certain things. And for instance, like they want you to be a religious man, a man that does this and does that. And sometimes some of us, not everybody, but some of us will literally go and try to be something or live up to a certain thing that because you want to be with that person. And then after I went through that a couple times, I said to myself, you know what? Once I found out what I did about the person and how they were, no one's perfect. Hell, I'm gonna just be me. If that's not good enough for you, so be it. I'm good anyway. But who I am is good enough. Actually, it's more than good enough because what I represent and what I bring to the table. And you should understand that. And if you don't, that's cool. But it took me a while to understand that. So I understand why some people still deal with that point of how they have to still work through relationships. Because I don't think those same people sometimes are not comfortable with themselves.
That brings me to a question I want to ask before we kind of close it on this episode. Because it seemed like to me, Mr. Charles, the word empathy, the feeling empathy, we have, hardened our hearts. Um, we've basically we have come to a place where we run from it. And I'm thinking that maybe I'm thinking that incorrectly, but does it seem like just in general that people basically tend to run from empathy or having it?
I would say for the most part, yeah, because when you have it, particularly if you have empathy for somebody else, you have to, it's really difficult because I say for myself, I had to work on this, and I want to make sure that I'm understanding the words properly. when I think about empathy, it's about caring or about somebody. Is that what we're talking about?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was on point. So yeah, but for me, because of my lifestyle, my experience, it was hard for me to have empathy because I had a lot of stuff happen in my life. And I don't blame anybody. Life is what it is. You know, I was chosen to have this life, losing people in my life for whatever reason. And that's just my story. But I had to admit, from at some point, people would come to me or have situations going on, and I would think to myself, "Damn, get over that shit, man." And it wasn't fair because that's your story. And if you have not experienced, you have a certain way that you grew up or you experience certain things, maybe you're not on that level that I am as far as the strength is concerned. You have not been through enough and you don't have to because that's your story. But it's not fair for me because, and I had to tell them, I had to work through this. It wasn't fair for me to not have empathy for somebody that was going through something because I felt like I had carried such a burden, and I'm like, you need to get over that. But then once I learned and told myself, you need to meet people where they are and support them because you never know what they're going through, and you never know what you're saying could could mean to them. But I think on the other hand too, that along with that one that I learned, my other part of it too is I'm not. You can't make anybody do anything. They have to do it for themselves. But I always want to make sure that I encourage them know that no matter what you're going through, it's going to get better. And I would use my experience to say, hey, this is not your world, but it's possible for it's going to improve. So I try to come and be supportive that way.
You know, is I'm going to piggyback on that, man, because I had to work on that myself because like you said, sometimes you might hear someone or you're talking to someone and they're feeling a certain way about a certain thing, and you're thinking to yourself, I'm thinking to myself, that's what you're grinding on. That's what you're thinking. That's what you're feeling. And I had to pull myself back and realize that's them. It's not me. It's not my personal feeling. And I can't take the way I may treat something or feel about something and bring that to them and expect them to digest it the same way. Now I can still have my, my personal thought, my personal opinion on it, but I can't expect them if they're not there. And as you spoke to what they may have experienced and how they handle things, so we all kind of basically, in a way, we have groomed ourselves to handle things in different ways. So that's something, like you said, man, I had to do the same thing. I had to really go back and look at myself and look and kind of treat everything kind of like that, to force myself to have empathy, not to run away from it, to have it. And that's why, to me, I like the question because I think if we don't really, push ourselves to have it, Mr. Reese, I don't think we'll have it, man. I think that sometimes I think our stinking nature might get in the way. So does it seem like people, overall in general, just tend to run from it?
Yeah, you two are sounding like you should have been social workers because that's one of the things that you're trained to do to show empathy with people who are in front of you, kind of telling you their experience. There's a lack of it in the society. But personally, it's for me, it's kind of like second nature now, where if somebody feels like they can come to you and talk to you about something, or you ask them how you doing, and you can see on their face that they're not doing well, and their reaction. Um, and I do that to my friends all the time. It's like, "Hey, how you doing?" They say, "Yeah, I'm good." I'm like, "Okay, how are you doing?" And that's the cue for them to know that. Listen, I know what you just told me is not what's so. So I'm lending my ear right now to get to the nitty gritty of what's going on. And I think people appreciate it when you just show empathy. And one of the things you have to do is just like you two just said is I remove myself out the way. I put my conscious self somewhere else, and I'm there in the role to be supportive and helpful to the person who is talking to me. And Charles just gave one of the lines that I teach students about meeting the person where they are. not where you want them to be, not where you think they should be, but meeting them where they are means so much to a person, because when a person comes to you and they need that empathy, they don't need for you to judge them and to kind of look down on them and kind of berate them with, well, you should be doing this, that. They don't need that at that particular time. They need a listening ear, maybe to flesh it out so they can hear what they're saying. And then sometimes, most of the time, a lot of times, they come up with the solution themselves. They don't really need you. They just kind of need to get it out and vocalize it, and then um, catch up with the words that they're saying out of their mouths. So that empathy is something that's very lacking in this society. Especially now with folks, because folks have been hurt, they've given, they've been vulnerable, and then they get betrayed, and they go, you know what, never again. I'm not doing this. You're on your own. I'm gonna sit this one out and eat popcorn, watch the show. But yeah, I know in my personal life, it's always been like when people come to you and they're ready to speak. Um, when you got the time, just listen to them speak and in a non-judgmental way, and showing empathy that, you know what, I can't imagine how you must feel going through that, even if you're going through something similar. But what can I do? I always sit there and go, what can I do at this particular time to help this particular person get through this particular stage in their life?
Now I'm gonna swing this a little bit because I want to see how this kind of measure when in terms if you're in a relationship with someone, Miss DeMaurice, and you come across someone, and I love the statement Mr. Charles said about where they are, see them from right where they are. But this question comes out of that because sometimes we're not forced. Sometimes we're basically to love someone, a mate, where they are, and they may not be where we need them to be. So if that is being said, are we capable of loving someone right where they are?
Yeah, I think we can, and I think here's the thing: if the problem still keeps um, resurfacing and coming up, and there's no resolution to it, I think then we have to really kind of share with that particular person who keeps going through this that it may be beyond your scope to try to be supportive and helpful at this time, and they may need to seek help, whether it's a therapist or something like that, on a more professional basis, because um, we could love somebody so much that we could be empathetic, we can be supportive, but sometimes we have to realize that we're really hurting them because we're really not helping them. Maybe they're using it as a crutch. Maybe they're playing the victim role, and that seems to get them by in life. But in the long term, that's not going to work. So I think, you can be supportive to that person up to a point where you realize that, you know what, I'm really not helping this particular person kind of grow, and this particular person kind of get through this barrier. So there might be some kind of professional help that needs to happen at that particular time. And that person may not take it really well when you tell them, like, you know what, I don't know what else to do at this particular point. So um, it's possible, but I think we have to learn that. Um, I used to say this in my previous marriage: I can't be your therapist. I'm not equipped to be the therapist. I can't play that dual role. I can be the supportive person, I can be the empathetic person, but I can't be a therapist to you. So you're gonna need some other help to get you through this point, especially things that I didn't have anything to do with. This came with you when you came in with the baggage, and in order for you to unload that baggage, you may need some professional help.
Hmm. Yeah, I think we have to, love them where they are. And I think it's a delicate balance. I really do. I think that the balance to me is the person must accept that you're going to love them where they are, and don't accept that to mean where, okay, I have no work to do for not to improve because you're going to love me where I am. You take that, or they should take that and realize, okay, this person is, love me where I am, but I still have work I need to do. As you said, if it means see a therapist or it just means internally handling some things that you have chose to walk away from, not be honest about, not accept, there's some work that needs to be done. And if that work is not necessarily to me going to basically manifest itself from that person, I can't stay there long. That's not to be mean. I just can't stay there long, continue to just basically, turn a blind eye to it because that's to me to where you can get lost. So when I speak of a balance, of a I some sort of a balance, that's what I'm speaking of, Mr. Charles. But should we basically, for the most part, love someone exactly where they are?
Yeah, I think from the start, I mean, that's all you can do. I know that I kind of dated, or I dated off and on with this one lady in particular, and she's really nice. I really liked her. I mean, we hung out for a while, but the issue was that she seemed to be very combative in relationships, and it's almost as if like from time to time she would want to fight or want to argue because she felt like she needed to be protecting herself, right? And she didn't want to be hurt, so she would always be combative, and she was very loud and want to argue about certain things. When she got mad, she had this the idea was she needed to be right. She needed to prove something, and I'm the opposite. I don't like to argue. If I'm arguing, screaming at you, particularly if I'm really mad at something, then I really don't want to discuss certain things, or I don't want to go through certain things. I mean, I can discuss certain things, but I mean to be like really mad. It's almost as if you have to do something deliberately to me that would affect me in a certain way. So I wasn't that person. So when I decided to kind of say, hey, we need to maybe take a break and look into this, and then I would try to walk away, just need to get some space. She goes, why are you running? I'm like, I'm not running. I just don't. I choose not to be in this situation with you in this manner. So I would say that, but I was thinking all along that somewhere down the line, hopefully together, that because what she'd been through before, as we stayed together, we could grow, and she could see that every man that you're with doesn't treat you like this, and it's okay to be vulnerable. And then she told me at one point that I needed to show her that. I was like, yeah, but you got to be open to what I'm saying. I'm not that dude. I'm not that dude that did that to you, or them last three dudes that did that to you. And if you're going to be that way, I mean, hey, I didn't bring this to you. I'm just trying to, I do care for you. I love you. I want to be with you, but I mean, you got to help me. Like Jimmy Reese said, you got some therapy or something. You got to work with me because I love you a lot, but you're not going to take my damn peace. For real. Ain't nobody taking that. Shit, I don't care how fine you are and however
Oh,
dang good that stuff was. I can't do it, bro. Can't do it. Can't do it.
oh, I love it when we get down to the nitty gritty. Mr. DeMaurice, man, I want to bring you back to something something you said, and because some people might hear what you just said to your ex-wife, and may not totally understand it, and I want to get you to go back to it because you said, because you're a husband, you said I can't be your therapist. So if you give more clarity to that, because I think a lot of people would automatically have the assumption, you're the husband, that is really, I'm not gonna say the therapist part of it, but it's kind of almost like your obligation to an extent. So with that being said, I'll have you just kind of, if you don't mind, go a little deeper when you're saying that to her. What are what gets you to say that? And is that something to where you just say, I'm drawing a line here for, like Mr. Charles says, for your own peace? But what gets you to that point at that time to say, I can't be a therapist?
Yeah, I recognize that there are some things that had happened way before I got there, whether it was in childhood, whether it was a previous relationship or marriage, that had nothing to do with me, and that wasn't resolved. And um, I understand being the supportive spouse and things of that sort, but I felt at the time some of the stuff that was coming up and popping up was beyond my scope. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do about this. And this is a job for a professional, because I don't want to say or do the wrong thing to set you off or to add on to the trauma. So so it's, you know, in a relationship, you can only be that significant other. Once you start trying to jump into different roles, I think it will change the dynamics of the relationship, where um, that person will weigh so heavily on you that it will take you from who you are and what you do and how you even function. And I did not want to be a crutch to my mate, who um, letting her kind of off the hook on these things and trying to do things that would stunt her growth. And you don't have to deal with that. I'll deal with that. No, as a grown men and grown women, we have to learn to deal with things outside of the other person sometimes, because we're not going to be together 24 hours, 7 days a week. And so I thought I would be doing detrimental harm in that, where it would stop her from growing, stop her from really kind of dealing with some of the things that she needed to deal with, that was hindering not only the relationship we were in, that will hinder relationships in the future. So whether or not it was with family, with somebody else that she chose to be with, whatever. And I knew um, that if she didn't deal with, or other past relationships, that they didn't deal with the trauma that they had, um, what happened to me was I started being blamed for the trauma that she brought in. It was like it was my fault. And I'm like, wait a minute, I just got here. How could I have done all that stuff? And so it gets misplaced, you know, because now they're looking at you as the, you know, the bad guy, that, you know, why are they feeling this way? And like, wait a minute, I just got here. You told me about all this stuff. I didn't do any of that stuff to you. And then everything, you find yourself walking through eggshells, because you think that, you know, everything you do kind of triggers them to things that happened before, and they're thinking that you're going to be the same way and all that. So it really kind of really makes the relationship really, really bad and horrible to be in. And so I think I realized that I'm like, okay, there's certain things that I can go to a certain point, and I can be as supportive to a certain point, but there's certain things you got to be accountable for, and you got to deal with, and realize that it's hurting your relationships with everybody, not just me. It's hurting your relationships. It has gotten to the point where it's now toxic. You've been trying to hold this stuff in so long, it's becoming toxic, and you can't hide it anymore. It is just seeping through your pores. And so if you don't realize that, there's nothing I can do about it. There's really nothing I can do about it. But I'm not going to sit here and play the bad guy, that, you know, everybody's looking at me like, oh, you're the reason why she's like this. No, I'm not. It's just,
Yeah, I appreciate, man. I love it because, you know, and one thing I've always noticed, man, and I love about what we do here, and like Mr. Charles was speaking about what he went through with someone, and she was saying why you're walking away. A lot of times we're in situations and we think it's singular, like we're the only one, and you start to talk and you start to listen, and you realize a lot of things that you've been through. A lot of people experience the same things, man. And as I listen to both of you gentlemen talk, I'm reminded of that. It's because when we talk and have conversations, we never know who's listening that can hear something that rings true to them and hits home. And they might have been thinking of a certain situation a certain way and might hear what we're saying and start to look at that situation totally different. But I will say, Denise, you said this a couple of times. It's one word, man, that you can love anybody where they are, But if they're not going to take accountability for what's going on with them, it's not going to be any good. And that may sound harsh, but we got to take accountability for our shit. We just do. Life forces you to do such. You can run away from it till the cows come home, but you're not running away because you're bringing it right with you. It's attached to you. It moves when you move. It sleeps when you sleep. It wakes when you wake. So you have to start taking accountability. And that's what a lot of people just refuse to do. Blame someone else, blame, and it's not about the point of blaming. Accountability. Own up to what needs to be owned up. And I guarantee you things will get a lot better, a lot quicker. We're going to put it right there, gentlemen. We're going to close the door on this episode. Appreciate you two always doing what you do. Bring it strong without basically afraid to say some things that need to be said. This one Black Men Talk, Mark Elliott, Mr. Demetrius, Mr. Charles. We get together again another 6-7 days. Never for a second think that God does not love you. He does. And we love you too. Take care of yourself.